Hello, welcome to Truth Sentinel with Scott. Watching over the truth in the news. Today's date is the 4th of March 2014. Just to let you know about contact details first of all, we do have a Facebook page. Check out Scott Sentinel if you do a search for that. There'll also be links provided on the YouTube channel and on the videos hopefully. There's also a Twitter account which is currently frozen because I tried to do some promotion for the account and it was classed as spam after only four messages, so I've got to find out the rules for Twitter. So hopefully that'll be up and running again soon. Okay, so coming on to today's news. Basically, of course, the news is dominated by the events in Ukraine, and we'll be talking about that a fair amount today. Ukraine is in a bit of a mess, really. Putin has said that war is a last resort, but in my opinion, he knows that his provocative moves will be enough to start a war. He said he's not on a path to war, and that he has a right to use any means to protect Russians. I'm not quite sure what he's saying they should be protected from, because they were in no imminent danger, and that, in my opinion, cannot be disputed. They were not in any imminent danger. Russian troops fired on unarmed soldiers. They did fire in the air, but this will not be the last skirmish, you can be sure of that. There's too many entrenched historical reasons why there's going to be some fighting going on there. It will either happen naturally, the outbreak, or it will be manipulated perhaps even by US or UK secret forces. It only needs one small incident, and everybody knows this. People like John Kerry, Obama, and a lot of our world leaders in the UK too, they want a war, so this is a situation they can very, very easily start a war if they want to, and I personally believe they do want a war. Let me know what you think about that. In the words of one Ukrainian soldier recently, he was talking about the firing in the air from the Russian troops. He said, "We were friends in the days before, but now they're calling us fascists." This is how quickly things can break down, and society in general. I think it's human weakness. And it's human weakness for people to argue, for situations to break down in any kind of situation where there's lots of emotions. And it's one of the reasons I want to find a place in the world to hide out and try and seek a peaceful life. I sometimes have those feelings. Let me know if you have those feelings too, and we could also maybe suggest some places. I often think about a nice tranquil lake somewhere in Switzerland, Sweden, Norway. Those Nordic countries seem a little bit more peaceful, apart from, of course, when you get crazy people shooting people on islands like happened in Norway. But that guy's actually, in some ways, ironically, achieved some of our dreams. He's now living peacefully on an island with his own place and a TV. Doesn't that make you feel satisfied that if you do the right thing, you can get a good life? Also in the news today, Oscar Pistorius. A lot of focus of attention on his case, his court case there. That'll be interesting to see how that folds out. My personal feeling is at the moment I feel like he's guilty, but you know, you have to definitely watch all sides of the cases that are put for the prosecution and defense, because it's very easy to jump to conclusions. But you know, the fact that some of his neighbors are saying they heard screams, then shooting, you know, arguing and screams, it sounds to me like they had an argument. But you know, also court cases can be so easily manipulated by the prosecution and defense, so you can't always guarantee that the verdict is accurate, especially as I've heard in countries such as Africa. The courts can sometimes be corrupt, but then I imagine that's probably the case. In fact, I know that's the case, that that's the case in our own countries too. In China, there was mass stabbings. 29 people dead in a place called Kunming. Said by some to be terrorists, well, said by the Chinese to be terrorists. Whatever these people were fighting for, stabbing 29 people, unarmed people in the streets, not the way to go about it. So they don't have my support. It's harder to keep track of the news in countries where that seems so far away and that we don't have direct contact with. This is why I feel that there should be far more programs organized by governments, good governments, not the ones that we have at the moment. Far more programs really making sure that everybody travels widely, has the chance to meet different cultures. You know, there should be delegations of every country visiting populations of countries regularly, far more regularly than is happening. And then we can really feel for events that are happening around the world. In other news, the White House has said it hopes to see an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal in place by the 29th of April. Anyone who researches end times Bible prophecy knows that this could be of significance. Now, whether you believe in God or not is not really important, as this may be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some in the global elite may be using the mark of the beast, the prophecies in Revelation, and the peace treaty that's mentioned in Revelations, a peace treaty in Israel. It could be just part of their agenda too, so it doesn't even matter what you believe really. It's definitely worth reading Revelations, because some of those events are going to unfold, whether they're prophecy or whether someone is manipulating things for that to occur. So it applies to all of us. So if you want to check out Revelations, you know, I'll read a little bit of Revelations to you now that a lot of you may be familiar with. Revelations 13:16 to 17, King James Version. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And of course, most people know what that mark is, you know, 666. That no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So, you know, we've heard about Bitcoin. Is this the electronic currency that is mentioned in the Bible in Revelations, and that could be being constructed by the global elite to fulfill that prophecy? Or is it actually a prophecy anyway? That's for you to decide, not for me to talk too much about. First question, what do you think of Bitcoin? Is this going to be a successful currency? Is this just a precursor to what's coming next? I was thinking of buying some. They're very unstable at the moment. Trouble is, if you wait until they're very stable, that's the time when they'll be more expensive anyway. I was thinking of buying some, then I realized I don't actually have any money. Okay, now one question I wanted to ask is, if there is a mark in the future, or an implant that you have to have under your skin, I think this is incredibly likely, whether you believe in Bible prophecy or not. I think it's incredibly likely, it's almost logical really, that we eventually have some kind of device that's on us all the time, so you can buy and sell things. Will you take that device? Whether and you know, maybe you could leave some comments in the comments section under the video, so we can have some discussions. Also Facebook, let's have some discussions on Facebook, because I know it's sometimes quite difficult to track the comments underneath a YouTube video. You can go to Scott Sentinel on Facebook. Later on, when the Twitter account becomes live again, you can have some discussions on there too. So would you receive such an implant? Remember, the alternative could be that you're going to be shunned by society, will have to go and live in the forest or something like that. Doesn't sound so bad to me, actually. You know, living amongst nature in the forest, away from what's going on in the world. It's a tempting thought sometimes. Okay, other news. Secret texts by Tony Blair have been revealed to directors of national newspapers in the UK, editors and people involved in newspapers. It just shows the close relationship our world leaders have with people in the media. Anyone who thinks that they don't, you know, just do some investigation. You know, you're getting private texts, personal texts from people like Tony Blair to Rebecca Brooks in this hacking scandal and phone tapping. Piers Morgan too, she's received texts from him basically showing their support. I think the text from Blair was something to the words of, let me know if I can help. I've been through this before. I think he's referring to the suicide of David Kelly. If you're not sure, if you're not familiar with that story, which could have been a state-sanctioned murder, check out David Kelly, weapons of mass destruction, that kind of thing. And he was referring to, he was basically saying, don't worry, you can have a Hutton-style inquiry, for example, a whitewash basically of the truth. He was saying, don't worry, we control these events, you just have an inquiry, everything will be swept under the carpet. This is just my opinions, of course. Other news, parents spending 30% of their income on childcare at the moment. Everyone, unless you're earning, sort of in UK terms, £100,000 a year or more, everyone will be feeling the pinch at the moment, will be feeling that they may be struggling financially. I certainly feel that at the moment. So parents having to spend a lot more on childcare at the moment, sending their kids to school, feeding them. Of course, if you send your kids to school, make sure they don't take any mini cheddars with them. A child was recently expelled from school here for taking mini cheddars to school because they were deemed unhealthy. Let's control it at an early age in education. Basically, do as you're told or face the consequences is the message. Literally, I had to turn the news down before recording this episode 3 because every sentence I heard would fill a whole episode with content. And that's the good news, basically, and I do want to give some positive news. I'm being slightly sarcastic here. The good news is that there's enough material to last a lifetime of these kind of episodes. You just need to turn the TV on for half a second and realise that what they're saying is either going to spark some debate, but rarely does on the TV. So yeah, we have to debate this ourselves. A roundup of the last episodes, we talked about the police state, the rise in police brutality, Ukraine. Ukraine is going to dominate the news for the moment because it's so important. The potential is here for World War III, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But that's why when I see comments on Facebook of people saying, stay out of this situation, it's nothing to do with us. It just seems so uneducated. You know, before you make comments like that, just research a little bit about history or research the topic before making stupid comments like that. We can't stay out of this. Something has to be done, you know. It's a serious situation. We talked about freedom of speech and freedoms in general last episode, and we'll be touching on a lot of subjects today. There's almost too many things to talk about in one episode. We'll see how it goes anyway. Might have to make 2 episodes or leave some of it until next time. So this year marks the World War I anniversary, and have the global elite decided that a nice way to celebrate the anniversary of World War I would be to have World War III. I don't know. So in Ukraine, let's talk about Ukraine first of all. Yanukovych is in Russia, hiding out in Russia. I think he's always come from Russia. He's always belonged there anyway, truly. I think he was just a plant by the Russians, sent him to Ukraine, you know. Or basically they just knew he was always going to be on their side. Maybe this has been planned for some time, that's all I'm saying. He sold out his own country. This is the plan. And it just shows you that, you know, so these world leaders, they don't care about the populations of their country. This guy was in charge of the Ukrainian people, and he's now risking the lives of millions of people there. Some people say he's a legitimate leader. Absolute nonsense, you know. His election was almost certainly rigged, either, you know, by financial incentives or other methods. But either way, you know, his method of government, you know, someone who runs a country like that should be removed anyway. basically an international criminal court should hold people like him responsible for the corruption, the stealing of money, state funds. Now, the only problem with that, with having such a criminal court that would hold world leaders to account, is that almost none of our current leaders would be able to remain in power. So that's probably why they don't do that at the moment. One interesting thing I found on the internet the other day was I was just reading a definition of the term divide and conquer. And it was absolutely, I found it uncanny because to me it sounds exactly like basically script of what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. I have posted, and I will sometimes post some websites on the Facebook page, Scott Sentinel, check it out. Basically, I've posted this link and others. The divide and conquer strategy. I'll read a little bit of it. I'm not going to read the whole lot, but it's just an online definition that I found on a site called WWIII, and it's just it's disturbing, and it's mirroring events that are happening. So I'll read a little bit now. A divide and conquer strategy, also known as divide and rule strategy, is often applied in the arenas of politics and sociology. In this strategy, one power breaks another power into smaller, more manageable pieces, and then takes control of those pieces one by one. It generally takes a strong power to implement such a strategy. I'm going to skip through and just quote a bit more. Leaders who use a divide and conquer strategy may encourage or foster feuds between smaller powers. This is definitely happening in Ukraine. This political maneuvering requires a great understanding of the people who are being manipulated. Well, of course, Putin knows all about Ukrainian mentality, Russian mentality, so he can do this. In order to foster feuds, for example, one must understand the political and social histories of the party intended to take part in the feuds, which I'm sure Putin is well aware of. Okay, it goes on to say, this is often successful if the leaders of the smaller powers have inflated egos and delusions of grandeur. Well, just research a bit about Yanukovych. It is important to note that this form is only effective if the smaller power allows itself to be influenced by the larger power. Well, Yanukovych is over there in Russia, definitely allowing himself to be manipulated. Anyway, have a read of that, or find some other definitions. You'll find it, you can almost work out what's happening and maybe what's going to happen by reading things such as that. The situation is extremely fragile over there, with the eastern West Ukrainians just ready to kill each other. Make no mistake, people in Western Ukraine and Ukrainian nationalists against pro-Russian people, they will fight. It's not going to be a question of that. It's just waiting for various sparks or things to happen. A Ukrainian admiral defected the other day to the other side, and he told his cadets and seamen to do the same. And in response, they sang the Ukrainian national anthem in defiance. Now, think of what they did there. That, you know, they've got the guy in charge of them telling them to switch, and they sing the national anthem. Now, just that very act could have spelt their deaths, and they would have known this. At least the more intelligent ones would have known this. And I did see, watching them sing, you can see some of them are singing louder than others, and some of them are probably just realizing that this could spell their deaths, and that's a fact. You know, I mean, they're going to know they're completely overpowered. They're not going to be able to stand up to these guys, but they're saying no, we're not going to switch. It's a very brave thing to do. I hope those guys make it. I really do. I hope they make it through, because those guys are the ones in most danger at the moment. One shot could start a war. We've already actually had some shots. They marched on the Russian troops, and they fired into the air. Now, they would have done so, of course, because they've been told, you know, under no circumstances fire, because they have to obey orders. You know, people like Putin, he wants to be in control. He wants to know that he can click his fingers and the first shot will be fired. But I think he also knows that this is going to happen. You know, they're not going to be able to stop themselves at some point. It's a real shame because people in East and West Ukraine are so similar. They're just from an opposing view on history, entrenched views and nostalgia about the past, the historical roots, and all of this nostalgia and all of these beliefs will potentially result in an absolute bloodbath in Ukraine. And I despair because I have friends in East and West Ukraine, and I've been watching their Facebook messages coming in, all so similar to each other in personality, but just unfortunately, just that little slight difference, that slight difference in belief of historically where their homeland is and where their allegiances lie. That slight difference can result in people's deaths. It's a real shame, and it's not just a problem with Ukraine. It's a problem within all of us. Sometimes we need to learn to give something up, and I don't mean give up your country. I just mean give up wanting to kill someone because of slight differences in belief. We need to care more about other people. In Japan, where I was living in Fukushima, I mentioned before, I was living in Tokyo as well, but I spent a lot of time in Fukushima, and we'll talk more about that subject of the radiation there at another point. In Japan, people believe in harmony in society. The needs of the individual and the beliefs of the individual are often suppressed to help harmony develop in society, and there's a certain amount of truth and goodness in that, but you know, there's also problems with that as well, because you need to also make a stand against authority, question rules, and sometimes, and you know, I think we can all learn from each other, but it's certainly true that sometimes we should sacrifice our own beliefs if it means that we can all live together. So basically, Truth Sentinels here, we're trying to find the truth in the news, because the media can no longer be trusted. It's actually very difficult to find the real truth in the news. You just have to look, and we can work it out together, and that's the point of this broadcast of Truth Sentinels, is to really for us all together to express our views without arguing too much, and to respect each other's opinions. And you know, anyone who talks for too long about any subject is going to upset someone else because they disagree, and it's quite difficult. You know, I've often spoken to my friends, and we've had heated arguments because, you know, we have different views sometimes, but you know, as long as we can work it out in the end, that's the main thing. As I said before, sometimes these shows are going to be rambling a bit because I'm not going to organize it too much that it becomes stifled. I want it to be fairly free, so apologies if I ramble a bit and skip between subjects sometimes. It's just a hobby. I'm not some kind of celebrity. I just want to help spark debate, because I believe that the more of us that talk to each other and vocally, publicly, the better things are going to become. And that's one positive thing I believe about the future, is that if everybody speaks out and says what they think, of course there's going to be some negative views that we're not all going to like. But if everyone says what they think and uses their freedom of speech and says, no, I'm not going to be controlled by you. You're not going to tell me what to do. I'm not going to be scared by revelations that you're listening to every email, phone call. I'm sure I'm being listened to at some point. It wouldn't surprise me, of course. But I think we all need to do it. I mean, how are these security services going to listen if we're all talking? We're going to outnumber them so much. This is an outlet for me just to express my feelings, and as mentioned in previous episodes, just in case you're a new listener, I'm coming from the point of view who's someone who's travelled a lot around the world, teaching English and other things. You know, I've travelled not just for work, for personal satisfaction as well. And I'm just reporting on things I pick up from the mainstream news, and this is a non-mainstream channel trying to find out what's really happening. Because believe me, you can no longer trust your own media. So some of the places I mentioned I've been before: Fukushima, I lived there for a few years. I was involved in the tsunami in Thailand. I've been to Ground Zero in New York, Hiroshima. I've lived in Ukraine for 3 to 4, 5 years. I don't know. I lost track because I've been there quite a few times, to be honest. Thailand. I was there in the during the revolution, and some of these places I may return to in the next couple of months, so I could do some on-the-ground reporting and maybe even some interviews. I was in Turkey. I climbed Mount Ararat looking for Noah's Ark. I've always been interested in archaeology, news, truth, mysteries. One thing I wanted to talk about was the potential of an apocalypse or an Armageddon. Not a very positive subject to talk about, but how many of you actually thought about that? You know, if something like this occurs, and it may do one day. This is the human race we're talking about. I think inherently the human race is intent on destruction. When you have a large number of us, I think we're going to destroy ourselves at some point. I'm sorry. It could be a natural occurrence, of course, but I just think there's too many people with negative views in the world, and unless we do something about it, then there's going to be thermonuclear war or something like that, because the people who are in charge are not good people. This is the problem. So if we talk positively, if we can change this, then maybe we have a chance. But I wanted to ask you what you think would happen if there was some kind of apocalyptic event or World War III. And one of the things that does get attacked first of all is communications. So for example, the internet could go down, mobile phones could go down. We talked in a previous episode about the zombie-like culture we live in, with everybody staring at their iPads, phones, laptops. And unfortunately, I'm also one of those people. I spend way too long on my laptop, and I'm currently thinking of ways I can try to limit that to an extent. The internet is a great tool for good and for bad, but it's also very addictive. But what would happen if all of these things went down? You know, I can't even remember what I did before the internet was around. What the hell did I do? I cannot remember. I must have been so bored. But at the same time, I seem to remember I wasn't. I must have found other things to do. But one of the scary things about if technology goes down, think about the amount of people you would lose contact. Just imagine for a second. How would you contact people abroad, friends you've got abroad? I've got lots of friends in different countries, and I realized that I don't have them on I don't have a phone number, because my phone I just tend to use locally rather than globally. And I would lose contact with so many people. There would be no way for me to contact them if we had no telephones, no mobile phones, no internet. So I was even talking to the other day with a friend, and some of you will probably think I'm going a bit crazy here, but I've made some arrangements with one of my friends, just about 4 global places with dates and corresponding times that we were going to meet in the event of a global catastrophe. Just because our reliance in technology has got to the point that without it we'd be literally lost. So basically, if we ever do get to the point, and I hope to do more of these broadcasts, if we ever do get to the point where a global catastrophe or something apocalyptic like World War III occurs, and it's like a 4-minute warning, then I'll release these dates and times, and you can come and join me and my friend. They're quite picturesque locations, don't worry. I'm slightly joking, but it's actually true. I have arranged these places. Okay. Also, could you remember to leave any comments in the sections under the video about things that you want to discuss? Any other phenomenon, mysteries, conspiracies, news? I'll be looking at your comments. We need to get that section moving. You can also leave comments on Facebook, Scott Sentinels. Hopefully at some point the Twitter account will be allowed to run again. Also, just look at the news, and you can leave comments like, did you see this, did you hear that? Maybe post some links. I'll investigate interesting topics. Maybe ask questions to try to stimulate debate on this channel. I may not do a show. Well, I won't do a show every day. I'm sorry, I have to work also. We all have to work, and in the society at the moment, that's another thing I talked about the other week about zombie-like culture we live in. You know, which some of us do have an excuse. We're so busy, you know. This scenario may have been created to control us, that we're so busy trying to work just to keep our heads afloat that it's difficult to care too much about the news that's going on around us in other countries. But I'm going to aim to try and do one of these a week anyway, at least, if I can. So I may return to even Ukraine or at some point. I'm getting to the point where I'd rather live in danger than live a life of peace in total ignorance, you know. I've been listening to other shows like Caravan to Midnight, John B. Wells, and I've mentioned him in other episodes. For people who are not sure who he is, just check out Caravan to Midnight channel on YouTube, and also corresponding Facebook accounts, and you can go to caravantomidnight.com. He's got some interesting guests. Maybe at some point we'll have guests on this show. But like I said, I'm not really a celebrity, so you got to be fairly well known to start getting good guests on, and maybe that'll happen in time. But other shows you could check out are Alex Jones. You know, he's not to everyone's taste, but I would just say, don't be put off after a 10-minute segment or something you've seen. Yeah, just a small segment on a show or something, or outbursts you've heard of or seen. Just watch, say, 3 or 4 episodes, and you'll start to realize this guy's heart's in the right place, and he's got, you know, he's really in touch with the latest news. If albeit from a conspiracy point of view, but I would say it's my opinion that conspiracy channels are closer to the real news than mainstream media at the moment. I'm only saying closer. I'm not saying everything's true, you know. You can also look at Lip TV, People's Voice. Hagman comes more of from a more of a religious perspective. Coast to Coast, I think, you know, occasionally there are some good guests on Coast to Coast. I'm not going to knock them too much, but they focus a bit more on mysteries, let's say, and phenomenon. Sometimes good, sometimes, I don't know. Problem with some of my research on doing reviews on other channels is that you know, like I said, I have to work. I have to do this show. I'm running out of time to also watch them all. Sometimes I listen at night before I go to bed, and usually fall asleep halfway through. And that's not because the news is boring. I think part of the reason, you know, is because I feel a bit more secure, and so I feel a bit more relaxed when I'm listening to some of these channels, because I know that there are other people out there making sure media lies are being exposed, and maybe that's just what sends me to sleep. I feel a bit more secure. Alex Jones is right about one thing, whether you like him or not. There is a war on for your mind. You know, watching Facebook comments coming in from my friends in East Ukraine and West Ukraine, they don't realize how similar they are to each other, and yet they hate each other in some cases. They're both sets of people are posting Facebook videos and messages almost identical, but from a completely opposing point of view. It's uncanny, you know. And they are controlled by the media, as are we all. The media knows that there are fragile beliefs and fragile tensions in these societies, so they only have to release a video of a policeman being killed, a pro-Russian policeman, and they post that, and you know, everyone shares it in East Ukraine, so they can say, look what they did to this policeman. These protesters are neo-Nazi fascists, and you know, they want to kill all of us. It's very easy for them to stir up trouble there. And then they release a video showing a protester being brutally beaten by a pro-Russian policeman. It's just, you know, the media know it's so easy to manipulate masses that have got tensions underneath the surface in those kind of societies. And it's been quite despairing for me to see this, because I know there's nothing you can say when these beliefs and insecurities have existed for many centuries. You cannot change it. There's no point even trying. You're wasting your time. It would take years to try and change some of these views and beliefs. There's also in Russia, the Russian people have to be also manipulated in this particular news story as well. There's been Russian articles on how people in Odessa want to be Russian. You know, everybody and it suggests that everyone in Odessa wants to be Russian. It's not true. I've got people on the ground living there at the moment, and it's just not true. There's rallies of protests there against this Russian invasion, and that's what it is. Don't be in any doubt. This is a Russian invasion of Ukraine. I have a feeling, it's just a feeling. I don't want to say anything on this show that is proven later to be wrong, if I can help it. I'm just saying I have a feeling this is going to be a war, and it's going to be a bad one. I hope I'm wrong. The media are trying to manipulate all of us, and I think, as someone else mentioned in the forums previously, we need to realise how much alike we all are, you know. Even if we've got differences, slight differences, we're so alike, you know, and we mustn't be manipulated by the media or by our leaders. And you know, these leaders don't have our best interests at heart. Another show, I was listening to John B. Wells recently. Best wishes to the crew there. John mentioned about it can be dangerous to talk about some events and some subjects. And not to be in any doubt that some people are being harassed and killed and controlled. Not in that order of importance, of course. You know, Michael Hastings, Breitbart, the guy that released the 9/11, made the 9/11 book. Sorry, I've forgotten his name. But him and his family and his dog were killed, suicide apparently. I don't think so. Somehow he appeared on Coast to Coast. And it was obviously, in my opinion, that was a murder. So what we need to do, we need to start all speaking out. You know, more and more people need to speak out and not stay silent, because they can't control us if there's enough of us talking. And I'm not trying to stir up any particular revolution at the moment. I'm just saying we want to speak peacefully and have our voices heard. That's all. You know, I've been told by some people just to be careful what I post on Facebook and be careful what I say. But you know, if you start to worry too much about that, then they've already won, and you're then living in a Orwellian world, and I don't want to do that. You know. Well, at some point we'll also talk about Lady Diana's death, or sorry, murder. I mean, most people abroad, I noticed when I was travelling, actually accept that she was murdered, and it's only in the UK where people have any doubt, because of the media again has controlled people, that they're not releasing videos, they're not releasing documentaries, and the royal family are heavily protected by the media over here. They even have a whole organisation, I've forgotten the name of it, but is it Clarence House? No, it's not Clarence House. Maybe basically they have a whole a company whose job it is responsible for making sure there's positive views of the royal family. But you know, there's lots of things to be dug up there. You know, do some research online. You'll see that everything there is not as it seems. That's all I say at the moment. You know, some of the larger conspiracies talk about population control. There is talk that there is an agenda. I see Agenda 21, that kind of stuff. There is an agenda. There's even some stones, I think, in Georgia in the USA. I have been to Georgia, actually. That's another place I have been to. And next time I go, I will definitely look out for those stones. There's supposed to be some stones on a hill. I know they exist. I've seen a lot of articles on them, but basically looks to be writing some text, some strange text on there, basically talking about the world should be cut down to like a very small amount of people, you know. So we're talking about wiping out 90% of humanity. These stones were not, we're not talking about pebbles here. We're talking about stones that would cost a lot of money and would withstand some kind of apocalyptic event. So we'll be there for a long time, basically. And these stones talk about population control, and some people believe that, you know, that's basically what's going to happen. There is a plan to kill most of the population so that just the global elite survive and they can start things afresh. Now, that, you know, it may seem very extreme, but that actually would be quite logical, because let's face it, humanity is not in a good position at the moment. You may be, you know, a lot of people may be sitting at home having a cup of tea, everything seems fine, but this is not, this society could be so much better, you know, it really could. Anyway, I think let's hope we're wrong about that anyway, that there isn't a mass agenda to kill everyone on Earth. You know, I certainly hope that's wrong. And I want to try and talk about some positive events. So please try and leave any comments in the comments section of this channel with any positive news as well. People standing up to global powers. You know, we could do so many more positive things. Human chains. You know, how many people would be happy to go to Ukraine and just, you know, form human chains and show people we care. You know, we have to be brave in some of these situations. So if you feel that you have got that kind of bravery, you know, maybe we should start organizing events and things like that, peaceful demonstrations. I never used to be someone who was involved in such things, but I don't know. I feel like now is the time for people to stand up, you know, start disobeying laws to control and people, defy authorities, criminalization of citizens, which seems to be happening all the time. They're trying to criminalize normal people, you know, and we need to stand up against that. Like the guy, I don't know if you saw online or in the media, the guy who ran up and grabbed the mic after the Super Bowl and said 9/11 was an inside job. You know, anyone who thinks that 9/11 story occurred just as it's been told by the media is, you need to do a lot more research, you know, and a lot of these conspiracies, a lot of people are just asking for things to be investigated properly, yeah, you know, that's all, just investigate them. Nobody's saying that they know the answers to what's happening in every situation. They're just saying there's enough inaccuracies that things do need to be investigated, and that the world around you isn't quite as safe as it seems. You know, these things need to be sorted out. You know, one example of the criminalization of society and of individuals. You know, every time I go traveling, I get something confiscated by immigration officials, basically, whether it be a small pair of paper scissors, which you would have to, you know, I think if I used my paper scissors and tried to attack someone on a plane with them, I think I would just be laughed off the plane, you know. Well, obviously not in mid-flight, but, you know, it's just laughable. If terrorists want to blow up a plane or want to, you know, cause panic on a plane, they can do it so easily. Paper scissors are not going to do it. Deodorant is not going to do it. You know, they can make bombs out of anything. Yeah? Deodorants are being confiscated all the time, you know. I can't help thinking they're being sold at some shop somewhere by the immigration officials, because every time I go I seem to get something confiscated. They know I'm not a terrorist. So they know, I know, but they're taking my deodorant anyway. It's a waste of time, yeah. Why, if they really believe it's a bomb, why are they throwing it in a bin and not analysing the contents? You know, there's all these bins we throw stuff in. They're just going to chuck that out or sell it. Yeah, you know, why not ban shoes, ban clothes? Because everything is a potential weapon, or, you know, could potentially be used by a terrorist. So what is the agenda? Why this completely ridiculous confiscation of toiletries? Yeah, it's overreaction. You know, do your jobs, but don't take away, you know, don't criminalize us, basically, is what I'm saying. What do you think about that? How do you feel? I want security in my airports, but I think this obsession with toiletries has gone too far. Basically, I also posted the nuclear explosions video and talked about the cancer rate going up, which seems to be directly correlated to the amount of nuclear testing that's been going on over the years. You know, they talk about, again, talking about deodorants. We're the ones causing this pollution because we're using deodorants. They're not the ones who are, we're not the ones who are releasing huge amounts of nuclear radiation into the air by the global testing that goes on every year. Massive releases of radioactivity. Now, anyone who doesn't believe the population could be potentially being controlled and kept down deliberately, watch that video. Just imagine every time one of those nuclear weapons goes off, that there's a massive release of radiation into the atmosphere, and radiation causes cancer. That's a fact. Everyone knows it. So check out that video, and just before you dismiss what I'm saying there, check out the video. See how many nuclear explosions have gone off since 1962, and then check out the cancer rate since 1962. I mean, we're not talking about a few percent increase. It's gone up by a huge amount at the same time that the nuclear testing has gone up by a huge amount. This is something that Al Gore should have talked about, not about his comparing graphs to do with climate change. There's going to be a lot of news being released about paedophile rings, ritual sacrifices on the mainstream media. At some point, it has to come out, surely. There's so many potential causes of World War III in the world, as well as Ukraine, of course. There's Syria, Iran, North Korea. I mean, North Korea, that's a situation that should have been addressed by the criminal court, the International Criminal Court. How is that man allowed to stay in power? How is that country allowed to continue in that state, in a state of secrecy and suppressing its own citizens? People talk about during World War II, people just stood by and how terrible that is. We are all standing by and allowing people in that country to be suppressed. We're also allowing the situation continue when we know for a fact at some point one of these crazy leaders, like in North Korea, or maybe he's not crazy, maybe that's just what we're told in the media, but either way, it's likely that that situation is going to cause a world war at some point. So why not deal with it now? If we had sensible leaders in control, if we had a sensible international criminal court, these situations could be resolved. But don't worry. I was going to say, don't worry that about all these wars, because we've got people like John Kerry, William Hague, Obama looking after us. Do you feel safe? Because I don't. I think John Kerry is psychotic. I really believe he's psychotic. I mean, did you see his quote about Putin the other day, saying, this is like these kind of invasions belong in the past. You can't attack a country under false pretexts. When he just read it and let's see what you think. It's just so hypocritical. If you have any links again, or if you want any content for this show, please continue to post them in the comments section, so I know what you would like me to talk about. Because again, this show is not about me. It's just I want to express my views, but I really want them to be what you want me to talk about, or your views, because I think we all need to talk more. That's for sure. In the UK, the police have applied for using water cannons. I do feel like our governments are planning something, or are preparing for social unrest. Now, this could be due to the economy and things that happen in the economy, but either way, it's not good. Even water cannons. There was a picture of a guy who'd been sprayed in the face with a water cannon. His eyes were hanging out. I mean, not good to look at, but just be careful, because some of these weapons that don't look so dangerous, like water cannons and other weapons, they could probably. I think there have been cases that people have been killed by water cannons, but I'll check more into that. Okay, what else? Fluoride in the water. I wanted to ask you what you thought about that. I mean, Alex Jones talks about there being fluoride in the water. Mercury fill-ins when you go to the dentist sometimes. Mercury is one of the most dangerous poisons known to man. It's a bit strange they put it in your mouth. What's your view on these subjects? I personally think that fluoride should not be put in our water on the grounds that I wouldn't have put it in there through choice, and yet I'm being forced to drink it. Fluoride is a dangerous chemical. It actually says on a lot of toothpastes, do not swallow. If you do, seek immediate medical attention. And then it's being put in our water. So, what do you think about that? I'm not totally comfortable about it. I still continue to drink it because I'm a bit too lazy to go to the shops, or I don't have enough money to buy bottled water all the time. And because I move around a lot, I can't always put a filter on the water all the time. What do you think about fluoride in the water? Another thing I wanted to talk about was fitness and the obesity problem. It's almost criminal that we're not being offered really good natural food cheaply, and that we're all being offered convenient options that are much more unhealthy. I struggle to keep my weight down, but I shouldn't have to. I mean, our food can easily have lower calories. Like, for example, Slim Fast chocolate bars are quite tasty. Why aren't there more options like that in our shops for convenience? Because let's face it, these people know that if you give people a convenient option that's unhealthy, people are going to go for it. That's why McDonald's is so successful. It's surely wrong to target children with such unhealthy food when it's been proven that when you're a child, that's the age that you learn. And this is why they're trying to educate our children to eat unhealthily. It's time we had a food revolution. I'll go that far for asking for a revolution. Some of the things that go on in the news, though, I mean, did you hear about the giraffe in the Copenhagen Zoo? And that's not the start of a joke. It's basically this baby giraffe was scheduled for termination, to be put down for no reason. It was a healthy giraffe, a beautiful giraffe. I love those animals. They seem pretty peaceful. This is why some people just love animals more, and you can trust animals because they don't seem to be killing each other all the time. Well, I mean, obviously some of them are, but not on a mass scale. Basically, this giraffe, this baby giraffe, was scheduled to be put down. Millions petitioned online and said, we know this doesn't have to happen. Other parks and other zoos offered this giraffe a home, and that they were legitimate offers. But no, they killed it, cut it up, fed it to the lions in front of children. And the excuse given? It's better for the giraffe gene pool in the long run. We're thinking long term about the giraffe population. It's a very caring thing we're doing here. This is a type of Nazi kind of view, basically. It's shocking, and check out that story if you can find it, about the Copenhagen Zoo giraffe anyway, and see what you think about that. What did you think about that? I thought it was terrible. Also, I wanted to say about how our rights are being taken away, and they seem to be given more to minority groups, and I'm talking here more about minority groups like murderers. For example, anyone who's lived in the UK will know about the Jamie Bulger killers. Check it out if you've not heard of that. If you're from abroad, just type in Jamie Bulger and what happened to this poor little kid, killed by two other kids. So, a lot of us work very hard to try to get ahead. We want a house, we want to live in safety and security. And it just seems like, if you kill someone, like the guy in Norway did, he's got his own, lives on an island now, peacefully in a house with, Xbox and everything he needs. And then there's the Jamie Bulger killers who sadistically murdered a child, and for the rest of their lives now, they get new identities. I think they've been sent abroad at some points. They get given houses, sort out jobs. The media are not allowed to reveal their identities. It just seems if you kill someone, you have all your rights protected and everything set up for you. It's not a way to demonstrate to people in society what they should be doing to get a good life. These people have new jobs, new houses, new life. Yeah, people should not be rewarded for these kinds of crimes. And they should not be protected so much. If there's this sort of protection available, why is it not offered to us as well? I also wanted to comment on things like Oscar Pistorius. What did you think about that? Do you think he's guilty or not guilty? Meredith Kercher as well. I've seen snippets of news about her and know some of the story. I'd like to know more of it if I get the chance. These stories aren't as important to me, but they're still interesting, you know. I'd be interested to know from a US point of view, if we've got any US listeners, which I think we have. What do you think about Meredith Kircher? Is she guilty or innocent? I mean, I heard that her DNA was found at the scene, her blood. You know, it's difficult sometimes to know if someone's guilty or not guilty because you can easily hear a biased version of the truth. And I think that's what happens with the media. We hear a biased version of the truth. Well, there's not much truth in there, unfortunately. Also wanted to ask the question, with criminals, how do you think they should be dealt with? It doesn't seem that we're dealing with these criminals in the right way. We're not re-educating people. We're not really punishing them at the same time. It's difficult to know what the answer is. You know, what do you do with someone, a serial killer? Recently in the UK, there was a young woman here that's started going out on a killing spree and killed a number of men. She's been locked away for life imprisonment now. How do you feel about people being locked away for life? Is that the answer? Should they be re-educated and allowed back into society? It's a really difficult situation. I do not know what the answer is. I don't believe in capital punishment personally, because I think if there's an excuse to kill someone, you can't tell people there's no excuse to kill someone and then kill them. It doesn't make any sense to me. Talking of being killed, what do you think about Osama bin Laden? Do you think he was really killed? I don't buy the mainstream media version of events there, and this is the problem. People some people shun conspiracy believers who believe that Osama bin Laden is still alive, or maybe was even killed some years ago. But really, what you should be asking is, why don't people believe anymore? People have lost trust in the news and in their governments. That's the main deal here. I don't believe he was buried at sea as a sign of respect. That doesn't make any sense. Sure, why would we be respecting this guy? I mean, because of his Muslim beliefs. I thought that the military said that his form of Muslim beliefs weren't valid. That wasn't a Muslim, you know, he wasn't a Muslim. You can't have it both ways. You can't say we buried him at sea as a sign of respect to the Muslim faith, but then earlier say he wasn't a real Muslim. You know, these are militant views. I don't get it. So let me know what you think about that. What happened in the Osama bin Laden case? Was he really killed that day? You know, the Navy SEAL team, Navy SEAL Team 6. A lot of those guys are now dead. You know, that's surely suspicious. These things should be addressed and not swept under the carpet. Then you won't have conspiracies. And this is the case with most conspiracies. Stop ignoring the questions. It's good to ask questions. People who think that you shouldn't ask questions, and I'm talking to people who don't believe in conspiracies, you should be happy people are asking questions. They're trying to make society better for you so you can trust things around you. Don't be blind and carry on with your lives and ignore these things and laugh. It's the wrong way to deal with it. Okay, just some of the injustices that are happening. You know, Abu Hamza, it took more than 10 years to kick him out of our country, when he was expressing his freedom of speech, which is fine. But when you start saying that you want to trying to encourage people to kill other people around you in a country that you were not born in, then I think you have a problem there. So I think there are some limits to freedom of speech. I think when you're seeking other people's deaths, trying to incite people to kill other people, especially in a country where you weren't born, then I think there has to be some rules in society. Otherwise, I'm not an advocate of complete anarchy. There has to be justices in society as well, and some kind of control. It's just the people who control us have to be good people, and we don't have that at the moment. I do believe also, talking of the Muslim connection, I do think more Muslims need to speak out. I'm sorry, you do. You know, with those Woolwich killings and with some of the acts that are going on, you have to speak out. You have to say you don't agree with it. Or otherwise, people think that you do agree with it. And that's where some of these problems are coming from. Okay. Let me just continue by saying that as I mentioned in the previous episodes, about a lot of these people, such as the Woolwich killers and the Sandy Hook killer, and other events such as the. Hello again. I just had a bit of a break there. I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. I'm aware that sometimes that some people listen to news reports such as this when they're going to sleep. I know I do, and maybe I should slow down a bit, and it'll be easier for you to get to sleep. Not that I want you to sleep. I want you to sleep at the end. So we're in the last 15 minutes of the show. So maybe this is the time for me to slow down for those people who are just drifting off, and just slow down my speech. And this might be the time for you to drop off, but not before we've covered a few more topics. I'm only going to talk briefly about this subject, but we'll talk about it more another stage, and that is things like benefits. There's so many things that need to be sorted out with our benefits system. Not blindly in the UK giving them to everyone who comes from abroad and wants them. People just, I'm not against immigration at all, and I want to make that clear. But there's got to be some stages you have to go through. But you can't just arrive in a country and get benefits. So they should be given to people who genuinely need it in this country. And I'm not against refugees either. And this could be a situation that's going to occur soon. How many Ukrainian refugees are going to come over? And I will definitely welcome them. Having lived there for some time, any genuine refugees from Ukraine are welcome over here as far as I'm concerned. But about the benefit systems, again, they're being run by government organisations, and I think the people who are above us, everything in society is not working correctly because we have the wrong people in control. We have, in education, Ofsted organisations, in benefits, we have Atos, and it's just all a black and white system where you tick boxes and then you're either eligible or you're not. I recently had a friend who wasn't paid benefits, so he appealed. It took him months, and they backdated his benefits, but then they taxed him on them. So it's like they give you benefits and they take them away. It's not truly done to care about you. The benefits should be given to people who genuinely need them, so that we can show that we care about them and we want them to get ahead. Not to do things like that where they give you your benefits eventually after long appeals, lots and lots of forms, and then they take them back off to you and say, yeah, we're taxing you now. It's a stupid situation. What do you think about benefits? Who should receive them? Who shouldn't receive them? Let's have a debate about that, but let's keep it sensible, not too many arguments. Sorry, arguments are fine. I just mean we don't need to insult each other. That's all I'm saying. Talking of finances, one thing I've never quite understood, there are a lot of world debts which are used to control people. Like in Africa, you wonder why that country is has economic problems, and that, a lot of people in the UK, I feel like it's not our problem. It's like, well, yeah, it is our problem because we're causing a lot of these problems over there. It's very easy to think, oh, we work hard over here, those people are so lazy. No, we're actually causing those problems by making them pay debts from years ago, when actually, historically, the US and the UK were involved in slavery. We owe these people money, yeah? It's all wrong. These world debts should be cancelled immediately. Criminal courts should put people who are in power over there that are not running their countries correctly. They should be put in prison. Decent people, the world can be changed if we have the right people in power. People are dying in these countries, yeah. They were used in slavery so that we could become more economically more successful. They've been suppressed, okay, and we're continuing to suppress them with our international debts, which we continue to make them pay, and then we try to manipulate events by saying, oh, we'll give you some more money, or we'll cancel that debt if you do this. Economy is used so much for global manipulation. Even with this Ukraine situation, they're talking about sanctions. I personally, it's just a shame that military intervention is only called for in situations where it's not needed, and not called for when it is needed. I think there's been there have been treaties to protect Ukraine by the US and the UK, which have been totally ignored at the moment. I don't want them to start a war, a war over there, but they should definitely be backing up that protection, saying no, we don't want to see millions of people killed in this country. We're not going to stand by and watch it happen. And yet I feel a lot of people will continue to watch their soap operas, and again I'm talking about the zombie-like culture we live in. They'll continue to watch their soap operas. A lot of people switch off the news, yeah? I can understand it can be negative, but it's too important. I'm sorry. If you keep switching off the news and watching soap operas, then you're just living in some kind of matrix-like zone where only your life matters and nothing else matters. Okay, so let's carry on. I think we're coming to the last. Let me see. What are we on at the moment? We're on about 1 hour 5 minutes. So we're going to wind in now. Maybe those people are drifting off to sleep now. I just wanted to talk again briefly about the royal family, only very briefly. At some point I'm going to talk more about them, but they're definitely part of the global elite. Anyone who thinks that they love us and don't want us dead, just listen to a video of Prince Philip. Have a search on the YouTube and look for about his connections to the Nazi Party. Then find a video where he talks about how if he could come back as anything else, he would come back as a germ and kill mankind. Surely your lovable little old granddad that you referred to in the media is actually holds Nazi views, and he doesn't care about you. He wants you dead. You can see that for yourself. It's not a conspiracy. This is the problem. A lot of people who don't believe in conspiracies, the evidence is there. It's coming out of his mouth, for goodness sake. Lady Diana's murder. If you don't believe she was murdered, please, all I would ask is watch all the documentaries about what happened that day, about video cameras being switched off, lots of other stuff, and you'll see that at least there's got to be questions asked again. Someone even recently, during another trial in the UK, said he knew that she was murdered because he was part of the team responsible for it. And I saw that in the news, and I thought, I kind of knew that this wasn't gonna expose anything, because he was very quickly shut up. A few people just said this is ridiculous, and this is the normal response to news that could well be the truth. This is ridiculous. We must stop allowing people to say that. And if you do find yourself, if you're someone who doesn't believe in conspiracies, all I would say is just do a little bit of research about some of the conspiracies. They're not all true, by the way, and most people who believe in some conspiracies don't believe in all of them. Just the ones where they've seen a ridiculous amount of evidence. To use the term ridiculous, there's a ridiculous amount of evidence for a lot of these things. So that people have to answer the questions, and they're being allowed by people who say this is ridiculous. They're being allowed to get away with it. Lady Diana's murder, the Kelly murder in the UK, the guy who was trying to say that there were no weapons of mass destruction. Don't worry, the Hutton inquiry cleared that up for us. You can't believe these government inquiries. They're stupid. We need independent inquiries. And when I say independent, I mean really independent. Not independent, friends of Tony Blair, basically. One thing I wanted to say about freedom of speech. How do you feel about internet trolls? The people who leave the messages on Facebook pages saying that they're glad someone's dead. This is where another line with freedom of speech. I think those people need to be dealt with. If those people are growing up without anybody stopping them from having this kind of mentality, then they need help. And I wanted to know what you felt should be done with people like that. I'm not quite sure. So I'm not sure about a lot of the answers to these things. I'm just trying to provoke discussion about a lot of these things that I'm talking about. Let's hope that we can discuss our opinions without hating each other. And also wanted to say that it's difficult to speak for an hour and 15 minutes every week, or an hour and 20 minutes, without upsetting someone. So if you are upset, just let me know what you think I might have said wrong, and let's have a discussion. We don't need to part company or anything like that. Okay, So I wanted to know your views on how to deal with people that we disagree with or who are racists. You know, I've been speaking to some of the people from East Ukraine, and believe me, Ukraine has a massive racism problem. Very xenophobic. A lot of people can't travel there. They can't travel because they're not allowed to because of visas, and so they end up becoming quite xenophobic, holding racist views because they've never met people from another country or race. How do you deal with someone you're talking to when you know, I hate to use the words right and wrong, although I believe they exist. I believe sometimes things just are inherently right and good and some things are wrong. That's just my personal opinion. But how do you deal with someone who's racist, deeply racist, and you know the reason they believe that is because they haven't had the chance to meet people from the societies they're talking about. They haven't had the chance to have them as friends. I find it despairing sometimes because I know you cannot change their opinion. So what can you do about things like racism? I don't know what the answer is. I think we need to discuss what are the answers to some of these problems. Is there an answer? We haven't got too much longer, but I just wanted to also say, what do you think about politicians and their constant need to use facts and figures which have been manipulated to try and back up their argument? So, for example, speaking in Parliament on Wednesday, last Wednesday, Mr. Cameron said that basically that there were 500,000 fewer children in poverty than in 2009. And you know, they just spout out these figures, and you know, when other people are saying child poverty has risen, they say actually, you know, and they just quote a figure, and it's just all nonsense. You know, you can't. Everyone knows statistics can be manipulated to suit whatever you're going to say. It's just politicians have got to stop making every response with a figure and a statistic. We no longer trust your figures and statistics, so don't do it. It's a waste of time. One thing also I was very suspicious about, let me know how you feel about this, the shipping of the chemical weapons from Syria. There's something about that situation I think something else is going on there. And the reason is I know that our leaders do not care about us. So they're not taking these chemical weapons away because they don't want them to be used against the population. They're quite happy to use them against the population. And that was shown in Fallujah. Check out online when the US military used chemical weapons in Fallujah. I'm calling them chemical weapons because they've only just renamed them something else. So they don't care. So why are they going to the trouble of sending ships in, spreading these chemical weapons across the world? They're taking, by ship, they're taking these chemical weapons to different countries around the world. What's that about? What's your opinion about that? I'm not sure, but I'm uneasy about it. I know they don't care about it, so what are they doing with those chemical weapons? By the way, napalm has been used during the Iraq War and is still used by the US military. It's just been repackaged and renamed. Do some research on that if you're not sure about that. One conspiracy that is massive, which I'm not sure about at the moment, but I'd like to know what you think about the missing nukes and the explosion that occurred off the coast of the US. You can see that an explosion or some seismic event did occur, because if you check the time and the date, and you can do your own research about this, basically find out about this explosion off the coast of America, where Obama is supposed to be involved and fired generals for not exploding this bomb over America. Now that sounds ridiculous, but something about Obama says this guy is nuts and needs to be taken out of power. So is it true? Do some research. Let me know what you think about that situation. To people who think that the governments, that they do care about us, you know, you've only got to look at history. This is the thing I don't understand. Stop saying conspiracies are ridiculous and that we should trust our governments, because, you know, for example, in the past, you only have to look at history. From 1950 through to 1953, the US Army sprayed chemicals over 6 cities in the United States and Canada in order to test dispersal patterns of chemical weapons. Army records stated that the chemicals which were sprayed on the city of Winnipeg, Canada, included zinc cadmium sulfide, which was not thought to be harmful, Who knows whether it was or not, but a 1997 study by the US National Research Council found that it was sprayed at levels so low as to not be harmful. Probably another soft kill weapon anyway. Investigate things like that, tell me what you think. I just think, when we know that in the past the governments have done things that would be shocking, that people would not think was true. For example, people who don't believe in conspiracies, do you think our governments would spray chemicals over cities just to test whether they would harm us? No? Well, they did. So check your history and then stop dismissing every conspiracy. We're just asking questions. Were Nazis relocated from Germany? Evil Nazis that were doing experiments, bacteriological warfare programs in Germany? Well, I don't know. Check it out online. What did Dr. Erich Traub from the Third Reich's bacterial warfare program? Was he relocated after World War II to Plum Island to sort out a bacteriological warfare program over there? They were doing investigations into ticks over there, and strangely enough, a tick-borne disease called Lyme's disease occurred just off the coast of Plum Island. These things need to be investigated. I feel quite fearful about viruses because, if there is any plan to keep down the population, you can't really defend yourself against a virus. You can buy all your combat gear and be ready for disasters, but viruses, if someone creates a virus and they want to kill people, then they can do it. And it's difficult to protect yourself against that, apart from completely isolating yourself from humanity, which wouldn't be much of a life. I'm just saying on this station that injustices in the world need to be addressed. People need to ask questions about events, and people need to answer them. People are struggling at the moment, they need help, and we want to live in a better world. That's all we're saying. We want to live in a world where footballers don't earn £300,000 a week, like Wayne Rooney has just been offered. Anything over £10,000 a week is plenty. I wish I was on just 10,000. What motivates people to get so many zeros in their salaries, when the rest of us are struggling? If we could just share out some of this money so everyone could have a good life. I'm coming to a close now, so those people who were listening before they went to sleep, hopefully you're sleeping nice and soundly now. I just wanted to ask you, are there any improvements you would like to make to this channel? Let me know if there's improvements or things you want me to talk about, different styles of the program. I would like to make some improvements to this channel to make it better. Am I speaking too quickly? I'm learning as I go along on this. It's just a hobby. If I say anything you don't agree with, don't be put off. Just write me, let me know. I'm not necessarily going to change my opinions, but I want to know your opinions. Thanks for listening to episode 3. Speak to you again next time. Catch you later. Goodbye.